Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Texas Prison Transparency Project. This is episode number 14, and tonight we're bringing the heat, or rather, I should say, the Texas sun is. It's already hot, and it's about to get a whole lot hotter, not just for us, but most especially for our friends and loved ones that are suffering on the inside of these prison systems across the nation. Tonight, we have a special guest back with us for the second time because she's so great and doing such good work out there. This is Christina. She's a leading advocate in the state of Florida. And as most people know, Texas and Florida's correctional institutes, they mirror each other to a very large extent, right? So we're going to talk about the heat conditions here in Texas for our inmates, what they're going through, what they're living through, some of the remedies, some of the relief that can be found, what can and cannot be done. And we're also going to get a look inside of Florida's penitentiaries and the things that they're going through over there and what they have and don't have and how these men are trying to survive as well. And women too, no doubt. So with that being said, that's what we have on deck tonight. I'm going to let Ashlyn begin with a little bit of news first. Go ahead.
Okay, so today I had several reports come into my inbox about a large police presence at the Wainwright unit. Everything's good. Somebody called in a false report about a suspicious person. It was not found. Basically, wasted a whole lot of law enforcement's time, but everybody's good. No worries. Just, hang tight. You'll hear from your loved one soon.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a case of rather safe than sorry or
I mean, I get it. I get it. But, last week we had an inmate on the cell phone calling a bomb threat to an elementary school.
Yeah, from inside of a prison. I mean, how smart is that?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. You think that's funny or something?
It's not funny at all, and it's not funny at all. So anyway, everybody's good. Everybody's fine. We'll moving on. So, yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So this is technically still springtime, but we're edging towards summer very fast. So of course, to many of us, it already feels like summertime, right? But we all know, especially us natives, it's only going to get worse.
It's
only going to get worse from here. So on the inside, this is what Texas inmates are looking at.
Okay.
There's still no air conditioning in the vast majority of our prisons. They are implementing it very slowly. Give them that, but very slowly. And they're running into all kinds of problems. When we attended the TBCJ board meeting, they spoke of such things. What was it? They were given
X amount of dollars. I mean,
something like $8 million or something.
I don't know.
No, I think it was a lot more than that. It was like 80 million, and they've only spent 13 of it so far. And they claim to have somewhere around 30 units air conditioned. I'm a little skeptical of that.
However, the plan is by 2030 to have these units air conditioned. So we'll see. We will see. But like Texas, the Florida private prisons do have AC. It's 75% of their units that do not including. So all of death row in Florida is air conditioned, and majority of their private prisons. So that's a little bit of a difference here. Where here, most of our SEG is air conditioned, isn't it?
I wouldn't say most. The type of unit, none of the red brick units, as we refer to them as, are air conditioned, SEG or GP. The units we refer to as 2250s, which 2,250 guys. We really call them 3,000 man units, but that's how they refer to them.
Got it.
The 12 building administrative segregations, those are air conditioned. I personally spent over 8 years in one of them.
Wow.
But tell me about it. But a lot of those have been emptied out, and they are starting to transition those housing units into cool beds, as they refer to them, for people with heat restrictions, like people with high blood pressure, elderly, and other medical conditions like such. These are single man cells. I believe they're trying to put another bunk, welded to the wall as they are in Texas. Another bunk, so they'll be like regular 2-man cells. but it's going to require a lot of work. But it's in the works. It's in the
Now,
process.
do you guys have cool beds for any medical restrictions?
We do not. So that was really interesting to hear that you guys have that, because we definitely do not have that. But that would be so useful if that was
Right.
something that could be incorporated, in the prisons. And then as you were talking, another thing that came to mind is like, what people don't understand too is like when our loved ones are in lockdown. So when they're in lockdown, they're in these concrete, what I want to call boxes, right? So
Yes.
not only is there no AC, but then you're putting them in these boxes where it makes it even worse. So it just shows how important. And I know there's a lot of people that have some mixed feelings as far as, those incarcerated. Like I know I've been actively posting about the conditions, and I've been getting a lot of comments from people saying like good, and like almost like it's a positive thing that our loved ones are in these conditions. But, one thing I try to push back on is that, when they got sentenced, they didn't get a torture sentence.
Right.
The prisons, going to prison, that was their punishment. It did not include, the heat and stuff.
Cruel and unusual punishment. Very much so.
And it's a complete violation of the 8th Amendment right too. So,
and sorry to interrupt you, but
no, you're
I
good.
just got to say, for the people that make those type of comments, and sure, we've all heard plenty of them, they all say that type of stuff until it's their son or daughter, their wife, their father or mother,
them.
or them sitting in one of those cells, one of those concrete boxes that you referred to, that only makes it worse, because concrete absorbs the heat all through the day, and you lay there and you cook like a roast until about 1 o'clock in the morning.
And let's not forget that people have to work there also. So not only are the inmates going through this, but the staff is going through it too. And
I've seen at least 10 or 12 staff members fall out from heat exhaustion.
Fall
out onto the floor, and it's usually inmates that help them.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody is definitely affected. Okay, so now on Texas units, we have the Fans Direct program for indigent inmates, and we also have fans that can be sold at commissary for inmates that can afford them. They're actually allowed a maximum of 2 fans, right?
Fans.
2 fans they can have. Now, you told me something about they don't have fans at y'all call it canteen though, right?
Yep.
No fans.
No fans at all. And we've been trying to talk to Tallahassee because they oversee all the regulations and stuff. And every time we provide a solution, they come back with a reason why we can't do it. So like we've shared about the battery operated fans, and they have something to come back with that. We've also said we could do the USB fans where, they have tablets. So there's charging stations.
Okay, that would work.
Yeah, anything we provide to them, they shoot it down. And the legislators are part of the ongoing issue as well, because we've had these conversations with the legislators as well. I'm not sure why, but for some reason, they just really don't care. And honestly, it's like 90 to 100 degrees here, but it feels like 120. So
I was going to ask, do y'all have any kind of like temperature logs inside? Like we keep temperature logs here. Do you know what the max temperature has been in your cells?
So right now, the highest I've heard is 120, but we're not even in summer yet. So
right.
Oh, so that's recent. That's this year.
So what would it be in the middle of the summer?
I mean, I've heard it could get up to 140. Like it feels like 140. That's what I've been told from other people inside, which that to me, that's ridiculous.
I've been in 130. I've seen 130 myself.
I think the highest I've seen on record here, I think, was a temperature of 151. And nobody can survive that. I mean, it's
you're literally cooking from the inside.
And Florida's like 100% humidity, which makes it 10 times worse.
Absolutely. And, today I live in an apartment, so I had to walk from my apartment complex all the way to get the mail. That's like maybe a 3-minute walk. By the time I came inside, I had to knock that AC down. So my first thought was, if I could barely do 3 minutes, I can't imagine what it's like all night long, and all day long. And they tell me that, like, it's really hard to sleep. And I've also heard they get really, really bad heat rashes, and they're not given any type of ointment or anything to like heal it. So they just have to use self-control to make sure they don't touch it or anything. And it's really, cruel and unusual punishment. And, we have dog shelters here, and people have an uproar if we did that to dogs. So,
we have, Texas has air conditioned horse barns.
Yeah, on the prison units.
Yeah.
So another thing is, like, so our prisons have dog programs, and I know one of the people that are in there, and he told me that one of the things they do is they don't get any of this, but the dogs will get fans put in front of them and ice water, but they're human beings, and
Right.
they don't even, and I think the biggest thing with this is that we need to humanize them. Like, a lot of people don't see them as human beings, and they're more than their biggest mistake they are. And a lot of them do rehabilitate, and it's not black and white. I mean, everyone has different histories and backgrounds, and it's just, to me, it's so horrible that this is where we are in the world right now. Like, it shouldn't happen.
The word is rehabilitation.
Yes.
You get punished for your crime to
Yes.
do X amount of time. Okay.
Yes.
You are in a prison. The purpose of the prison is to hold you and to help facilitate rehabilitation. It's in every mission statement in every prison across the country. Somewhere in that mission statement is going to be the word rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Nowhere in those mission statements is going to be the word punishment.
Correct. And I will say, unfortunately, Florida does not rehabilitate. They punish, and in my view, also torture sometimes, but they do not rehabilitate. I've gone to visits. They treat everyone really bad, including the visitors who are not serving time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not going to rehabilitate, then you don't serve a purpose.
Right.
You don't need to exist. Your existence is based upon, predicated upon the point that you are going to rehabilitate these people. 90 something % of which are going to return to society. So what are you going to be returning back to society? And if you can't return a better human to society, then why should taxpayers fund you?
100%, because if they go out, the same way they went in or even worse, then you're not doing anything good. And that leads me, like, to my other point. So with the heat and stuff, it's going to create, other inmates to be irritable, or just they're not going to feel good. It's going to, just like you and me, we're not incarcerated, but if we were out in the sun, like, all day, I'm sure we would have an attitude. We might, lose patience and stuff. So really, they should also be thinking about, like you said, like the officers, like, it's going to create a dangerous situation because it's going to create heat exhaustion, especially with no water and things like that. So there's a number of factors. So it's not just about, like, if they're looking
Speaking of water, do they provide ice water to the day rooms in Florida?
So as of right now, I did contact one of the prisons, and right now they are not yet. Yes. So, and it's really hot right now. So
do they normally, or is it do they just wait till a certain, like, time period, or they just not? I mean, is it?
They're saying right now they're saying June, but that could also, that
midsummer. Wow.
Yes.
What are you waiting on?
Yeah, they're saying I think some prisons right now are doing ice water, but not all of them.
So are your private prisons there? Do they generally get better? Are they better ran? Are they treated better versus the state prisons?
So the private run ones, obviously there's investors who are putting, they're feeding money into it. So in those type of institutions, what we do know is a lot of times they do have AC most of the time. Now, there's a little bit, I haven't been to one, but I do know people that are in them, and they said they're a little bit more lenient with things. So they are run very differently from a state prison.
Right.
Still dangers with, just like any prison. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, that we hear that too here in Texas. They were actually trying to get legislation passed to get rid of private prisons here, and a lot of people kind of went against it because of the very same reasons that people think they're prison for profit, but that's going to be private or state. Let's just get real. It's what it is. But
it's the same thing with death row, though. Like, we have a lot of investors that put money into death row, which is why, like, when it gets time for them to be executed, they put them on suicide watch because they don't want them to do it. They want the state to do it because there's money that, investors are putting money into that.
I don't understand that.
I
how are they reaping anything on any return on their investment on something like that? I don't get it.
Maybe it's something they like and enjoy.
Oh, wow. I hope not.
Wow.
I wasn't expecting that.
I hope not either, but yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's crazy. Okay. So
no fans in Florida.
Except death row.
Except death row.
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, that's weird. But for the general population, oh my God, man, can you even imagine, as bad as it is in Texas, and most Texans with loved ones in prison, we know, we hear about it all the time. It's bad and it's brutal. Like, brutal is the word. Even with fans, it's brutal. And what they sell here in Texas is a 9-inch fan. You're allowed to buy 2 of them. They're $22.50 a piece. And they're plastic. Of course, it has a metal motor in it. They're electric. They're electrics.
Jonathan is saying that there's no fans at the Wheeler unit. That's interesting.
I'm not familiar with the Wheeler unit. I've just heard the name.
So, Jonathan, type in the comments for me. So is this no fans at all, or no fans allowed at commissary to be purchased?
And is that a TDC unit or a private facility?
Yes, that too. I think it's.
I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about it.
Right. It's not one that comes on my radar much. So, So, Jonathan, fill us in a little bit, please.
But so in Texas, you can buy 2 9-inch fans if you can afford them. If you're an indigent inmate, you could submit to receive an indigent fan, and they will issue you one. I don't believe they'll issue you 2. They will only issue you 1 if they have any in stock and supply. Yeah. So, there is that. It's very little relief, but I will say it's better than nothing. Right. And as me and Ashley were discussing earlier, she's like, doesn't it just blow the hot air that's already surrounding you? I'm like, absolutely. But it's, again, I would still say it's better than nothing, because we can soak ourselves down with water and sit in front of the fan and get a little bit of relief, And then you think, like you mentioned, the concrete boxes, which is what these cells are, and these concrete absorbs the heat of the day all day long, and it releases it after the sun goes down. And you don't get no relief. It doesn't actually start to cool off in there until around 1 o'clock in the morning. And what makes it worse is humidity. Everybody is sweating in this concrete box, and you're soaking yourself down with water to try to get relief, but you're also creating more and more humidity all the time.
Jonathan, thank you for your answer, and welcome home. He just got out on 5/12, guys. So
welcome home.
Welcome home.
That's amazing. Awesome.
And I'm going to look into what you're saying, because that's a problem. He's saying that they didn't have them on commissary at Wheeler, that they only have them at the bigger units. So we're going to look at that. We're definitely going to look at that.
Okay.
Now,
so what are things that you guys do, that your men and women over there do to cool off in these situations? Like, what are some of their remedies?
Yeah. So a couple things that I know is some of the doors will have like a window where you can put something through. So what they'll do is they'll take like a blanket and make like a kind of how do I explain it? They tighten it so that, a funnel. There we go. So the air is
a windsock. Yeah.
Yes. And it's still, I was told it still feels like hot air, but like you said, it's better than nothing. And they
at least there's some type of breeze.
Yeah.
And it's not much, but it's something. I've also been told, which this is kind of sad, is that sometimes they'll stand in the toilet because the water's cold. So, it's just to help cool them down. I know at night they will, go down to like just their boxer briefs. And even with that, they're sweating really bad. So, it's just things they try. And they'll try and get bottles to fill it up with water, and not for drinking, but just to like pat themselves. And
Right.
and they have to time like when they're taking showers, to try and just cool off. And
Do they have cold water showers available?
not right now. Right now, they've been requesting it. They haven't done it yet. So what they've been doing is after they take a shower, they've been going right to like they have what they call fans in the community area. So
Right.
they will go and just stand in front of the fan, like in the towel, until they can kind of cool off a little.
Which helps the people standing in front of the towel. But in Texas, it's a problem because you do so, but you're blocking everybody else from getting any breeze.
Yes, it's a
It
problem.
becomes
You
a
can't do it
problem.
long. Yeah, you can't do it long. And I've been told that they've said like it's hard to breathe. Like that's how hot it is. And in Florida, we have a big humidity problem as well. So it's really sad and really disheartening.
Yes, it's
So-
hard.
So
What
when they-
about one more question? What
Okay.
about on commissary, or as y'all call it over there, canteen?
Uh-huh.
Do they sell inmates anything that could provide relief, like cool shirts or chill towels, electrolytes to help retain fluids, anything like that?
So I know the state prisons and the private prisons are different. So like where my loved one is, he cannot get the shirts at canteen. What he has to do is something called a quarterly. So he has to order it, and it's called quarterly because it's once a quarter.
4 times a year.
Yes, yeah. So and they're obviously they're overpriced, but yes, he can buy those on there, and he can only get a certain amount. And the other problem is a lot of times when they send laundry out, they don't get everything back. So he has lost some of I think he has like maybe one left. And the other ones are just regular shirts. And then they do get 2 pairs of shorts, but they can't just wear them whenever they want. They can only wear them when they're told they're allowed to. And that's only like inside the dorm. So any other activities, they have to remain with.
They can't go direct with the shorts on outside?
No, like when they go to chow, they can't, they have to be fully dressed for chow when they go to canteen.
Yes, of course. But usually, like in Texas, you have to be fully dressed to go to recreation. But once you get patted down and they put you on the rec yard, you have your t-shirt and gym shorts underneath, and you can take the heavy like sackcloth material, take that off, and you're allowed to wear that stuff on the rec yard.
Wow.
Yes, they just at my loved one's prison, they just started allowing them to do that recently. But
Yes. Also, here in Texas, on the commissary, if you have the money for it, if they sell what they call cool shirts, and they're made out of polyester. Of course, in Texas, everything is all white.
yeah,
And this is a cool shirt.
Yeah.
I brought it home with me from prison. This is actually what they sell. This is actually what they see. It's still got my TDC number written in the collar. Yeah. This is a cool shirt.
Uh-huh.
All polyester, very thin, silky like material, but it's no good unless you're in front of a fan. You soak it in water, wring it out a little bit, about halfway, put it on, and you have to be in front of a fan. If you're not in front of a fan, it's just going to suffocate you.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. Yeah.
Way around only getting one shirt a month.
It says you make store.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. In Texas, they only allow you to buy one of these a month. But the trick, the little wraparound is you can buy a different size every time you go to the store, and it doesn't count. You can only buy that one size once a month.
Oh.
So, just different things for people here that are looking for additional relief, because as you can probably imagine, the shirts get kind of aromatic.
Aromatic. That's a good word. That's a good word.
Yes. Also available on the commissary here in Texas. Again, if you have the money, they're not giving you none of this stuff for free.
Mm-hmm.
They sell electrolyte drinks, which will help you retain fluid longer, right? And help you stay hydrated.
Mm-hmm.
This right here is an electrolyite. This is an orange flavored electrolyte. They're 15 cents a piece. You're allowed to buy 30 at a time.
Yeah.
I've heard that apparently there's been some debate out there about the health issues with these. But from everything I can tell, man, they're not very bad. They sell 3 different flavors here in Texas. They got a lemon lime, an orange, and a fruit punch.
Oh,
the
wow.
fruit punch might be bad because it has the red 40 dye in it, which most people know is not good for us. But the other ones, I'm looking at it, 4 carbohydrates and zero sugar.
I think it's the sodium that people are concerned with.
But sodium's part of electrolytes.
Yes.
Sodium, potassium, magnesium,
Right.
forms an electrolyte. Your body needs sodium to retain water.
Now,
And you're sweating so much, you need to retain what you can.
Yeah.
So do y'all have that here?
Yes, we do have them. We do have them there. But our canteen, like they can't go like every day. So are you guys able to do canteen no? Okay.
Once every 2 weeks, once every 14 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of our units don't even get that. Like,
No, you're supposed to go once every, and it's not exact like every 14th day. Every 14 days is a spend period. You're allowed to spend up to $105 here, which sounds like a lot, but you get about a half a bag of stuff, with the prices. So $105 every 2 weeks, every 14-day spend limit, as they refer to it.
Okay. Yeah.
So one of our viewers, Shane, says that he would dip his sheet in water and hang it up, let the fans blow on it, and it would drop the temperature.
It does work. It just creates a lot more humidity.
Yeah.
But it does work.
That is a great tip, though, so I'll definitely be, sharing that with everyone,
One other thing I'll add about these electrolytes and these cool shirts in Texas, regardless of your custody level or whether you are on commissary restriction or not, you are still allowed to buy these. These are referred to as emergency items, but there's a limit, every 30 days, there's a limit. And same thing with fans. A fan is an emergency item in Texas. And you don't even have to wait for your building's turn to go to commissary. You can go to the sergeant and be like, I don't have a fan, but I just got funds. I need a fan. It's an emergency item. And they will allow you or escort you to the commissary window. And you're allowed to buy that any day of the week, Monday through Friday, as long as commissary is open.
That's an amazing thing. That's amazing. I have not heard of having
but
that.
But this was hard won. So many people have died of heat-related deaths here in Texas, and so many families have put their foot down and gone the distance, spent the money, courts, Supreme Courts, Fifth Circuit, Ninth Circuit, you name it. They've gone the distance because it's just wrong.
No, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and in Florida, for some reason, they don't have to report deaths related to heat with those incarcerated.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Do they publicly report deaths at all?
They do, but if you go to the website, what you will find is majority of the deaths say natural causes, even when they're not.
in their 20s and 30s, talking about natural causes.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to track and fight legislation-wise when people aren't recording them properly. Like we ran into that as well. There were some advocacy groups that went and did a federal lawsuit last year. And like I said, they actually won the lawsuit, and the judge did claim it was a violation, of the constitutional right, saying it was cruel and unusual punishment. But in the end, they didn't force TDC to do anything about it. So, here we are pushing legislation again. It's now fixing to go back to the Senate Corrections Committee to be, try to do it again, and I'm hopeful this time. But it's still we're still looking at 10 to 15 years before anything happens.
I would say that's one of the first things that y'all need to push for in Florida through the legislation is to force the penal institutes over there to classify their death reports. They have to have transparency. They have to. They're going to ask for and accept taxpayer money. They need to be transparent with what they have going on in there.
I 100% agree. And we have a high percentage of elderly people that are incarcerated. And, we've heard from family members that their loved ones are getting heat strokes or other, heat related, hospitalizations because since they're older, they're more prone to being, victims of things that have to do with the heat with not having any AC or fans and stuff. So
that's awful.
Yes, heat stroke is a very real thing. I've personally seen a couple different people that have passed out. I've seen one guy die. I told you, I mentioned I've seen several officers, probably at least 10 or more. I've seen officers fall out on the wings, and medical has to come and get them in a wheelchair and take them out. You know, yeah. I personally experienced a heat stroke one time myself. If you care to hear a short story about it, I was coming out of administrative segregation, which, remember, I told you I was on a trauma building, so it was air conditioned, and I've been in this air conditioning for 8.5 years. You know, and that might sound Cadillac, but everything in Texas is extremes. It wasn't a nice, cool temperature. It was frozen. It was frozen. What? We used to use cardboard to block our vents both ways to stop all airflow because it was freezing in there.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So I come out of that environment, and they pack me not onto a chain bus, but into the back of a van. And in the back of the van, for nobody that's ever seen the inside, there's a cage.
Yes.
You know? And then the cage is split down the middle with a metal partition. And there's 4 people on each side, you know, shackled down. You know, knees is so small, your knees are touching the cage in front of you.
Yes.
You know, and we're crammed in here like sardines. And we were in this bus for like 8 hours. I went from Abilene to Huntsville, and you know, with numerous stops in between. I was asked, did the van have like air conditioning? I was like, yes, like up front, but we didn't really feel nothing in the back. You know, we're sweating back there, and the guards that are there's a guard driving and a shotgun rider, you know, and they're smoking cigarettes as they're driving, and the smell of the smoke, man, I hate it. It gives me a pounding headache. So my head is throbbing. Like I said, all these hours of this, and we finally get to the Walls unit, which was a big transfer hub in Texas. And we get to the Walls, they undo the shackles from the front, shackle me behind the back. Because I'm coming out of SEG, I'm still classified as a SEG inmate, even though I'm on my way to the grad program, right? And, you know, you're allowed to carry 1 chain bag with you when you travel here. Anything beyond that has to follow you. You know, you'll be lucky to see it in a couple months.
Right.
But so, and they make me carry my own bag in handcuffs and shackles behind my back and walk. And it's probably about 1/4 mile, you know, with all these turns and turns. The bag rubs the back of my legs raw. I'm sweating, head pounding. We go all the way through, downstairs, through gyms, upstairs, around the corner. We get to these cells. I walk onto the run, and there's a thermostat on the run. It says 115 degrees. This is on the run outside the cells. Now get this. This is an old unit. This is red brick. So it's jail bars, traditional style. And over the bars, they've welded a metal plate that covers the entire cell. And they have like quarter-sized holes all in the middle. So they put me in the cell, take all the shackles off. They don't give me my fan or none of my property because they have to inventory it first. So they put me in there. Man, I believe it was every bit of 130. Not trying to exaggerate. At least 130 degrees in there.
I believe you.
The bottom of my feet were sweating. I'm telling you everything, and my head is throbbing. And then they slide a tray under the door with some kind of slop on it. And man, I'm just sitting there, and before you know it, man, I start vomiting. I'm throwing up, my head's throbbing, and I'm just curled in a ball on the concrete floor.
Yes.
And, you know, never got no help, never went to medical. They finally brought me my fan. I plug it in and turn it on, and I just lay in the middle of the floor in my boxers and just waited for it to fade until I passed out. And, you know, I eventually woke up and just kept on pushing.
Yeah.
So I want to go over what the symptoms of a heat stroke is.
Yes, that's important.
For those that don't know, you know, because I know we have staff to watch this. I know families educate their loved ones about it, but so these are the main 8 symptoms of a heat stroke. Okay, so the first one is going to be an altered mental state or altered behavior, confusion, agitation, slurred speech, delirium, seizures, and a coma.
Yep.
So number 2 is hot, dry skin. Basically, you are failing to sweat at this point, so you almost shrivel up.
When you stop sweating, you're in trouble.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. 3, rapid breathing. We all know what that is. You're breathing. You're almost hyperventilating.
Yeah.
4, racing heart rate because your body is trying to cool itself down.
Mhm.
Like he mentioned, severe headaches,
Mhm.
nausea, vomiting, flushed skin, fainting, especially after exertion.
Oh,
So you've been out in rec, or you've been to work out in the fields, or wherever you may work, and you come back. Those are the big main tell signs. And I've seen too many people almost have heart attacks from the heat.
right.
Yeah.
And I know in the Florida prisons, like when stuff like that happens, like you don't get medical attention right away. And I've heard some cases where they don't get medical attention at all. So it just depends on, I guess, like who's running the prison or the staff. But we hear all the time that, it's really hard to go see a doctor if you're having a heat stroke or anything along those lines. And getting dehydrated, it's just
there has to be some type of accountability for that. That is just beyond the pale.
Now, I mean, do you guys have a shortage of staff in your prisons right now in general?
So the funny thing is, when I went to visit a prison a couple months ago, they said there is. However, we just had session, and Dixon, he's the one that oversees the prisons, he said we don't. So,
Well, we're very, very short staffed, and in the summertime, people call in to work because they don't want to work in the heat, which makes it even more short staffed. So I was curious, if you guys have that issue too.
I will say now, especially like the prisons over the Panhandle, I do know, the boxes that the officers are in, those have AC, and a lot of times, so when I went to visit, I would see them in jackets, and I'm like, why are they wearing jackets? It's not winter, but it's so cold. They have it so cold in there. So I in the actual dorms where, the loved ones are, they don't have AC, but behind that, where there's the control rooms or, whatever they call it. Yeah. Those have AC.
Yes.
A lot of them do.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. Another here in Texas, you mentioned they do not in front. Is they provide cold water showers. There's a dedicated cold water shower year round now, and should be all units here in Texas.
I know they've
that's a relief. I used to use it, and that's year round. That's available.
Yeah, I know one thing we've.
So y'all don't have what they call in Texas.
No. Mm-mm. I don't think we have that. Yeah. No. I do know we have requested cold showers.
Is still evolving in Texas as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. There we go. Are we fixed? There we are.
So.
Right.
I assume that everybody can still hear us, though, because that seems to be how this works.
Yeah.
So,
there we are. There we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
So cold water showers, they have installed them on, as far as I know, all units here in Texas. There's usually 6 showers on each wing, at least. Yeah, usually 6 showers on most units I've been on. And one of those showers is piped in nothing but cold water year round.
Mm-hmm.
And that provides a lot of relief, even though it'll take your breath away.
Yeah.
Well, we have one watching now that said he was a plumber at the Styles unit, and in the summertime, every pod had one shower that was just straight cold only. Wow.
Yes.
So that's something you need to work on in Florida, is what they call in Texas respites. and having
Oh.
respite areas and policies. I'll get the information to you because it's a mandatory thing here. And
Yes.
if you can at least get something like that done, it
That'd be
should help you guys.
Absolutely.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would appreciate that information. And then I'll bring it to Tallahassee and different legislators and try and get
Yes.
some sort of relief or comfort for, all the men and women that are,
Well,
behind.
What that
Wow.
looks like here in Texas is it's an air conditioned area. Sometimes they use the medical holding cage, which is right inside of medical. They have a holding cage for people waiting to see nurses and doctors. But
Yeah.
whenever medical is not running, then they'll use that. They'll usually use that for medium custody or closed custody, because it's caged up like that, right? And they'll usually use a school room in the education building that is not being used for education. And they'll use that for a respite room because it's air conditioned for inmates. Now, you're only allowed a time limit when you go to respite, if they're even running it correctly like they're supposed to be to begin with. The whole nother issue, what they're supposed to do and what they do, whether they allow you to go or they don't. All that kind of stuff comes into play. But when it is running appropriately, you're allowed to go. I forget the time limit, maybe 20, 30 minutes. And then if there's a lot of people waiting, they'll send them back. It's full. You got to wait until they cycle some people out. So there's a time limit on but you can go in there and sit in the air conditioner. You're not allowed to talk in there.
No
you
tablets.
just have to sit there and just cool off for your 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And then bye, back out in it.
Idea. Like that's awesome because I think we have like you said, classrooms also, and those usually are AC because they have usually guest instructors that come in and things like that. So I totally forgot about that. So I'm definitely gonna discuss that. I will. I wanted to also
have to build anything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's called utilizing the proper spaces, and it's important. It's just so important. But there's a lot of good literature in Texas you can kind of search, especially Facebook, the internet. There's some advocacy groups that have a campaign. It's called 85 to Stay Alive. And there's tons of information out there too, because pretty much that is the temperature they claim. 85 degrees is what a person needs to be in consistently to keep them alive. Anything more than that is just too much. And animal shelters have to be regulated at 85 degrees.
They do. You're right.
Yeah.
And like last year, something interesting really that happened was I called one of the prisons because I was trying to get fans in there. And I don't know if they were trying to bluff me or something, but they said, we'll let you do it if you agree to buy a fan for every person in this dorm. And so I said, yes. And I said, how many? And they said 41. I'm like, I will buy them. And I was ready to go. And then they said no. So I think
you called that bluff. That's terrible.
Like I'm telling you right now, if they would approve it, there are so many people that would donate fans. And, I've been trying to help you get a Fans Direct something there going on too, because it's just, there's no reason for it. There's no reason for it.
I know
we're not in Colorado. We're in the South. It's hot.
Exactly. And I know we've been in contact where I've asked, what brand of the fans that you guys use. And, I captured it. And so I could try and get it here. It's just, there's
getting your legislation on board is going to be the biggest key. And like I said, we've had issues here, except for the session that just ended in the House, what's currently in our Senate, is really they're coming around. They're starting to realize, okay, things aren't exactly as they're being perceived. But one thing I learned is our legislators are clueless to what's really going on in our prisons. So if I had to guess, that would probably be a big issue that's going on in Florida as well, or in any other state, because I don't believe that the corrections departments properly report problems to them because they don't want to look bad. So it's a matter of families speaking up, advocates speaking up, lawyers, former inmates, staff members, etc., that they have to start really educating for change, and
Yeah.
You can fix ignorance. Ignorance is just uneducatedness, and it has to be.
Yes, I've even emailed legislators asking them, to go visit a prison, just so they can just walk through and see like whatever goes through.
We have some that have taken up that challenge.
Yeah,
it's been an eye-opening experience for them.
Yes,
Mhm.
it is. You have to come back. It's everything you bring to the table has to be fact-based.
Yep.
So we've spent a lot of time creating databases and searching through these death reports and kind of trying to, decipher what is what. They don't like to report the heat-related deaths here either. However, the executive director of TDCJ actually was asked on the stand in the lawsuit for the ACs how many deaths there were, and he did acknowledge, I believe, 7 of them.
Yeah.
But it's just 7, but we know there's a lot more. But that 7 was enough for that judge to go, okay, this is not okay.
I do know, like during our sessions, I've seen some legislators that are supportive of reform asking for reports, and the corrections always say, "Oh, we don't have that," or "We need to get that," and then they never get it. So they try to kind of weasel out of like providing data to legislators when they're asking about certain things. So they really need to start enforcing that more.
Now, do you guys have a grievance process? Can your inmates grieve an issue? Like, I don't know how they would grieve anything heat related. Like, can they grieve anything heat related at all?
They can do grievances. A lot of people don't want to because unfortunately there are a lot of instances where they get
retaliation.
Yes. That is a very huge thing in the Florida prisons.
So,
there are some that'll still do it, but there's some that are just like, I'm not.
Just file a class action.
But here's the thing: you can't file a class action, or you can't really file a class, but you can't file a suit at all without the grievances.
Correct.
Yes, you have to exhaust your remedies.
You have to have everything, and so we've spent a lot of time educating people as well about grievances, and we always get the flack of, well, they're not going to make it to the box, or they're going to get tore up, or we're going to get retaliated.
They're not going to do nothing about it.
Like that. That's fine. I'd rather have a denial on a grievance because that's my paper that I can back up something with.
It's a trail.
So they have to get put in.
Yeah, and if you want to get to a point where you can do something more effective, like a class action lawsuit or something that will force these people to do what they should be doing out of human decency anyway, you have to exhaust the remedies in place already. Whether they work or not is beside the point. These are just the stepping stones that you have to take.
If you don't have a grievance, then it's pretty much treated like it didn't happen. So I always tell people I'd rather have a denial than nothing at all. I can work with a denial. In fact, it actually works better in your favor if I have a denial. But I can't nothing.
Because then you have some sort of proof. I know it's not the same, but when I advocate online and stuff, I get all kinds of mean comments and stuff. But I keep going because I'm committed to making things better and making change.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I've taken a lot of mean and ugly argumentative comments to legislation, and it's eye-opening for them. They're like, oh, people feel this way. Yes, especially some of the not so nice staff members. It's like, okay, you want to see the negative culture? Here you go. And it's eye-opening. It is eye-opening.
I've had officers even like bash me when I try to, whenever I do any type of advocating. So I've had to, I do block the officers.
The thing is, I don't know about in Florida, but here in Texas, or at least specifically with our group, the Texas Prison Transparency Project, we advocate for inmates and officers. I did 25 years in Texas State Prison, and I don't hate guards. Because I always wanted to guard against becoming institutionalized. That was one of the only fears I've had in life. I knew I had a large sentence from a young age, and I was always aware, man, I do not want to become institutionalized. And that's one of the hallmarks. I hate all cops, all guards, all authority figures. I never want to be that guy. Do I like them all? But there's plenty that help.
It's like
human beings. They're human beings. There's plenty that have helped me out in very significant ways over the years. several that have even changed my life, you know?
Right.
So, and
Yeah.
the thing is, if we make conditions better for the guards,
Mhm.
it kind of trickles down to the inmates,
Mhm.
you know? So if the state don't want to do it for the inmate,
Do it for your
do
staff.
it for your officers, do it for your staff, support them, and we'll just catch the byproduct.
Yeah.
You know, we're happy with that. That works.
I mean, it's all about the negative culture, and we're not in the archaic 1800s when these prisons were created anymore.
Yeah.
The youngsters that are coming into our prisons are wild. Like heaven help our world if they keep going the way that they're going, because so we've got to change the culture to be able to reach certain people, and it's just
A monumental task.
yes, it's a monumental task, and but it has to be done.
On the bright side, though, more and more people are how would I say, more and more people are waking up to this, and actually, I guess they see through the consistency of what primarily Ashland, because I'm still relatively new to it, you know, the consistency that her and people like her have been showing, you know, a lot of even officers and staff, administrative types, they're seeing like, okay, this person seems to actually be genuine. They're not just here to vent and argue and create strife or whine and cry and complain about stuff. We're actually trying to fix stuff. And like I said, not just for inmates, but to make things better for the guards too. The entire system can be run more effectively and with a better outcome. And that better outcome is the benefit for society as a whole.
I have a really, really amazing team behind me that this is their heart. This is their soul. This is their, we care. And it's not because, like he said, not because we're trying to prove a point or bash the system. No, in fact, we're like, how can we help you? Help us help you. You know, and it's starting to come around, but we're not there yet. But we're getting there. We're definitely getting there.
Absolutely. I know. Yeah, I do know, like, what we've seen is, like, when we do talk to legislators, that we get more done when we go to the approach as it's going to be better for the workers. So if we switch we know it's going to be better for our loved ones, but we need to switch the focus in order to get things done. So we have noticed that. And I know, like, every time I visit a prison, I always talk to the officers, and I'll ask questions like, what type of rehabilitation programs for the inmates would make your job easier? And they'll talk to me.
Good question.
And they'll tell me. So I don't do it.
I'm interested. What's their answer to that? I'm really interested.
What are some of those responses?
One thing that the officer told me is that they have programs like listed, but they're not actually putting individuals through them. So, like, they can say we have these programs, but they're not being utilized. Yes. So that's one of the things. Another thing would be before someone even goes to prison, they do a diversion program first. Like, try something like that first to see if it can be corrected. Because everyone has different backgrounds. Not everyone, I hate to say it, a lot of people view everyone incarcerated, they put them all in the same box, and they don't all go. Like, I know we have all these crime shows, and stuff like it. That's not what it's really not. It's
not reality. Not reality. It's Hollywood.
No, it's not.
Right.
Yes.
We have young people. Yeah, we have young people that are, under the age of 21 who maybe were abused or come from a really low income family. So they just, they make mistakes and things happen, but should their life be completely ruined? No. We have options, but we're not using them.
That sounds a little similar to one of the things that Ashland often speaks of is a lot of these programs that actually exist in Texas. Instead of waiting until an inmate, client, whatever they want to call them these days, resident, client, inmate, they've gone through all kinds of names.
I think it's offender now.
It even said convict on the ID at one point. So whatever.
Oh my goodness.
We don't care. Whatever it is. Before, why wait until they're 3 months away from release before you put them into these programs? They should actually be put in when they come through the door. They should automatically be enrolled in certain programs depending on their situations. But some of the ones that should be pretty much across the board, anger management. Anger management should be for everybody. You know, perhaps an effective communication class.
Yeah.
You know, which doesn't even actually exist in Texas, but it should.
Cognitive intervention.
Cognitive intervention. That's one of my babies. I love it. I took it twice. I enjoy it.
Yeah. But
And
even
if you have a drug addiction or a drug charge, you need to go to some sort of substance abuse from the
day
minute
one.
you go in there.
That could possibly impact
A
the
lot.
severe episodes of addiction in prison. You know, teach these people the reality of addiction when they first come in, or try to break their addictions when they come through the door, before they get in there surrounded by all this poison and think that they're bored and they just want to kill some time and accidentally end up killing themselves.
Yeah. And I
we all know that drugs are not drugs anymore. I mean, you don't know what you're getting at this point, and it's just.
Yeah, and I do know we do have drug programs, but the problem is it doesn't help when we have officers, unfortunately, bringing them in. Like they need to stop that, and they need to, our state really doesn't, reprimand them for doing that. Like they need, to do something about that, because even though we have these programs, they can't get better if they're still being fed the stuff. So
Exactly. Okay, so Ruth asked, do they have a limit as to how many programs or classes an inmate can take? Not that I'm aware of.
Vocations and such, they do.
They do.
But these type of programs like CIP, which is the cognitive intervention program, and stuff like that, you can take them repeatedly. There is like a time limit in between. You got to wait. Like CIP, they say that it's only valid for a 2-year period. So if it's been 2 years or more since the last time you took it, you can take it again. And that applies to most of the classes that they have here. It's usually a 2-year window. It's only valid for 2 years, and then you need a refresher.
Do y'all have a limit over there?
So I know in Florida, there's certain programs that, there are a limit. And then there's certain programs where like you need to already have like a GED or, something like that. And a lot of the programs you have to sign up and you're not guaranteed to get in. So they only have limited numbers.
Because you have to stay out of trouble, be disciplinary case free for 6 months at least, maybe a year, depending.
Now, is GED required in Florida to get, or no?
Is what required?
A GED.
It's not required because I've heard some people not get it. So it's, they encourage it. And I think they do try to push you to do it. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's required because I've heard of some people that don't. And then there's some people that just can't pass it too. There's some people that have taken it more than once and it's just challenging to pass. So yeah.
Right.
Yes, they kind of require it here in Texas. Even if you don't sign up for it, they will put you into a GED class if you don't have a GED.
But what if you don't pass?
And if you refuse it, you get wrote up. And you don't just get wrote up once. You have to get wrote up at least twice before they'll kick you out or allow you out of it.
But what if you can't pass the test?
You keep on. They keep on tutoring.
I think you're only allowed to take it 4 times though. Like state requirement wise.
I haven't heard that.
Well, I mean, I have
because you have to pass the pre-test before you get a shot at the official test.
But I mean,
you might only get 4 shots at the official test.
I mean, the one that I'm referring to that my son helped, and he was on his last try of the mouth test, the 4th try.
Yeah, I think that's when you take the official test.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to share with us?
On the same topic still, lifers are excluded from those things. So they don't have to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sucks, but I guess I can see their logic in it. They don't want to spend money, because they're going to.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
Right? I mean, quality of life. If you're going to hold even if you're going to sentence them to death, like I don't know about in Florida, but here in Texas, the average wait time for a death row inmate is 20 years or more.
Yeah.
You're going to be incarcerated 20 years or more.
Yeah.
What do you want the man to do?
Yeah.
What is the man supposed to do? If you're going to keep him alive or not keep him alive, allow him to live that long, then what about his quality of life? It might not need to be great, but it needs to be something.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
Because here's my thing, okay? Just because somebody is sentenced to life or sentenced to death, we all know there's been plenty of cases that have been overturned
Mhm.
because they're either wrongfully convicted or their case is proven wrong. So what if you have men that have been here 50 years and then their case is overturned and then you throw them in the world and they have zero education, zero life skills, nothing. I mean, then what? So I don't think it's fair to punish them by not withholding.
Very good point.
You know, I mean,
It happens very often. It happens a lot where someone's, either wrongfully convicted or, messy evidence or, science that
Right.
it was faulty and they're like, oh, this wasn't actually correct. And yeah, there's just so many things with that. So yeah, I mean, and, I know we're at the end times, like, so to close, I would say, if anyone either has a loved one incarcerated in these type of conditions, or, even if you're just, wanting to advocate and support, like I would say, get, especially Twitter, because we have a lot of legislators that are on Twitter all the time. So I would say, get the Twitter, and then, follow Ashleen and Shannon. I would also say you can follow us, Freedom Force Florida too, and get involved, and we would all appreciate it so we can make the world a better place, and especially for those that are
this is a platform for those who care.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
And, and like I announced in my post today, we have officially teamed with Freedom Force Florida. They're very dear to my heart and have been since, I've spoken to several of their people on the inside as well. And just some of the greatest people. But we are so alike in our ways as states in our prison systems that there's not a reason we should not support each other. So anybody that follows me, follow her, vice versa. You follow Florida, follow us.
Yep.
And I'm actually going to bring Christina out in August to come to one of our advocacy events so she can network with everybody here.
Coming to the Lone Star.
And then we're going to hope to get to Florida for their next legislative session and try to hit some legislation with her.
Yeah.
And just really, because we can get some data from Florida. Florida can get some data from Texas, and maybe we can start making some
improve
huge
together.
Yes.
Yes.
I will say it was a blessing meeting you guys. Like, so,
absolutely.
And, like Shannon, me and Ashleen, we talk all the time. So
we do.
I think we became best friends. So I'm very grateful for your friendship.
Y'all talk about me.
You wish.
I'm getting a little nervous here.
But all right, guys, with this, we're going to close. Keep everybody in their prayers because it's getting hot, y'all. It's getting really, really hot.
Make sure your loved ones have fans if you're here in Texas. They're $22.50 a piece. If you can afford it, they're allowed to have 2 of them.
Yeah.
And it really is a lifesaver.
But the indigency program now that they have, if they are indigent for 30 days, meaning no money on their books for 30 days, it's a simple I-62, I believe.
I believe it goes to the property officer.
I believe so as well. I will confirm that in a post tomorrow, but I believe it is the property officer.
Because that's who issues it out and gives you a temporary property paper.
Yes. So we're going to work on that for you guys over there. There's not a reason you shouldn't have it, but all right, y'all, everybody, good night. And we'll be back next week, and Christina will be back with us as well, probably very, very soon.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, y'all.
Stay cool.